Hello Skiller fans. Today we will break down the style of Oleksandr Usyk and also break down how he uses his agile movements to take his opponents into deep waters. Agility, speed, footwork and angles are aspects of boxing that are more commonly seen in the lighter weight divisions of the sport. Perhaps the best example of this generation is Vasyl Lomachenko.
He does not have the hands beyond the line. A lot of text, a lot of action. Russell for the USA in 2008. Is he right? Russell.
How he effortlessly moves around the ring and punishes his opponents from these unexpected angles is a sight to behold.
Both be very aggressive. Actually has the skill.
And a great example of how polished skills can lead you to success in the sport. But what if we told you that there was a boxer who encompasses these same skills but at a much higher weight division? Well, Oleksandr Usyk is that boxer. Now, let's start the breakdown with his boxing stance. Boxing stance. Usyk usually boxes from a southpaw stance and likes to alternate his guard depending on which range he is fighting.
Experienced heavyweight. And we'll try to give Usyk some work.
He will either fight from a more closed guard when at mid-range with his hands up, constantly using pre-slips,
Of his career. Again, he got ring generalship, he controls the
and keeping his head off the centre line, being aware of the danger at a closer range.
Chaz Witherspoon, meantime.
On the other hand, when boxing from the outside, he will use a more open guard with his lead hand semi-extended, which he will use for different purposes, which we will explain later on in the video.
I'd expect nothing less, like you said. We've got an unbelievable boxer in Usyk.
Usyk tends to fight off the pendulum step, which is the basis of what makes up his footwork. This style of footwork was created by the Russians and has since become very popular in the amateur scene, especially among Eastern European fighters. The pendulum step is characterized by constantly shifting your weight between your front leg and your back leg. The key to this is to also be on the balls of your feet, so you can create that constant bounce needed when shifting your weight forward and backward.
Your rigid tense ankles stops your weight. They allow you to keep your balance. They allow you to push up with your feet, to rotate your body with a punch. The soft ankles will not let you send your weight forward during the punch.
But why does Usyk utilize it? The advantage of this type of footwork is that you can come in and out of range quickly. Usyk can quickly step in on the opponent, and before they know it, he stepped far back out and away from them, nullifying any chances they had on landing a hit.
That fight back in 2012 when he was effective.
However, the major drawback to this style of footwork is that it takes up a lot of energy because you're constantly bouncing. This is why it's usually seen more in the amateurs. Because of this, Usyk is not always fighting off from the pendulum step and has employed a wider array of movements that are also more energy efficient into his pro career. We will be going more in depth about these other movements later. Lead hand game. What makes Usyk's lead hand game so impressive is his almost hypnotizing ability with it.
More than the cruiserweight average. That jab for the south.
Drawing his opponent's attention to that lead hand and distracting them of all his other weapons.
And then he nailed it right in the middle.
Having an active lead hand doesn't always mean throwing a lot of jabs. Usyk constantly puts the lead hand out there, using probes and feinting a lot of times in a looping motion, changing levels and getting reads on his opponents.
Disguised by a left uppercut which preceded it, and it put Wlodarczyk on the canvas. And
he will also use this looping motion to transition to what we could consider an outside parry, to open up opportunities for his rear hand.
Big shot straight down the middle of the punch, got him off balance.
Well, he just can't get confident. That needs to get too close.
And another left.
Constantly knocking Gashev's head.
He doesn't just feint with the hand, but he will also feint with his entire body. Oftentimes, boxers will keep these two feints separate. Usyk combines both of them together using his lead hand and half-step feints to get more reactions from his opponents. The constant mix-up of feints and probes will make it specially difficult for his opponents to make reads on his jabs, which make them more hard to dodge.
but again, look at how busy that jab is. That is absolutely incredible. 354 jabs thrown through the completed round so far.
He is very effective using up jabs, and a great example was his fight against Anthony Joshua. As the feint is to the body, and the jab is coming from a lower position, it really surprises his opponents, making it much more effective. Volume punching. Now that he is controlling the rhythm of the fight with his lead hand, he can really start to let his hands go. What's really interesting about Usyk is how he barely puts that much power behind his punches. Rather, he focuses more on volume.
Ставить практически было бессмысленно, а вот на у ринзе, а и у житті. Да, ну и помню, что и пришел Oleksandr Usyk. Табису подустал. Ну и Саша нелегко, этот жест. Тот понял, что он не такой уже и быстрый. Проиграл. Да, ну Табису, видимо, порубиться он всегда не против. Еще один.
However, the way he goes about volume punching is also unique in that of itself. On this clip, you can see William Zepeda as another example of a volume puncher.
There for Jojo. We asked Zepeda.
You know, it would serve him some good to not just.
He is just taking it right to Diaz, who's backed against the ropes. What is he doing?
Zepeda is boxing beautifully. I checked in. More. Minute and a half left to go.
Look at him go again.
Williams' punch volume is meant to slowly hurt the opponent to the point where they can no longer continue.
Trying to fire back, but Zepeda is just relentless.
Every punch is hard. He turns all those knuckles on in.
While Usyk's volume punching is a lot more different. Instead of using volume to accumulate damage on the opponent and make him quit, Usyk will accurately target the opponent without really sitting down on his shots.
38. The heaviest of his big gulps of air. And Claudia Trehouse is in Usyk's corner. Claudia for Usyk, and now some success. And that hasn't quite occurred.
While these shots may not be as powerful, it allows him to go at a pace that a lot of other guys can't keep up with. This was really evident in the Bellew fight.
Brilliant fighter. He's so hard to pin down, and then when you nail him, he's good at it. He's exceptional.
Usyk was constantly putting combinations together and tapping him with his jabs, to the point Bellew couldn't keep up with the pace anymore.
Continues to pressure Bellew, and there's no time off. Foot right back on the pedal. No chance for Bellew to relax.
Once the opponent is drained, the openings start to show up, and that is when Usyk starts putting more power behind his shots.
Close enough to fire the left hook, and he eats one. And a good angle by back behind him and score. And then he nailed him right in the middle. Down. Three good shots had gotten in, and then
head off the center line. A notable pattern in Usyk's style is how he really emphasises on keeping his head off the centre. Usyk will not just move his head at the exact moment the opponent is about to attack, rather he is already moving his head before anything has even been thrown yet, especially using pre-slips to his right, staying away of the opponent's rear hand. That of course whenever he is facing an orthodox fighter.
Можна стояти перед ним. Хтось випередив мене.
Basically, he's already anticipating the attack before it even happens, and just keeping your head in this constant motion hinders the opponent from even starting up anything to begin with. He mixes slips with level changes, so his head remains out of that centre line and is in a safe position for the entire fight. What we have already discussed on another video, and what we like to call anticipatory defense. You could let us know if you would like a more in-depth breakdown on anticipatory defense. It's also a mental game and makes the opponent second guess himself before he commits to a punch.
Влучно від Усика. Класно закрутив праву руку.
He combines all of this pre-defensive movements with a very disciplined high guard, always protecting the vulnerable areas. Other boxers tend to usually just have one or the other. Either they maintain this constant head movement with their hands low so they have a better sense of balance, or they have a very tight high guard but no real head movement. Usyk encompasses both. He has slick head movement, he's light on his feet, has dominant footwork, all while maintaining a really disciplined high guard, which makes it so hard to break through his defense.
Это его козырь. Действительно, это...
Ну, так само, ти знаєш, як у першому раунді. Звернули ви увагу на праве плече.
Dominant footwork. In boxing, you not only fight with your hands, but also with your feet. Positioning can make all the difference in the world, and Oleksandr Usyk is the perfect example of it. Typically in orthodox versus southpaw matches, a lot of these end up becoming fencing matches, wherein both boxers are constantly fighting to control the lead hand and the lead foot. As an intelligent southpaw, Usyk is very aware of it. He is constantly fighting to bring his lead foot to the outside of his opponent's lead foot. By doing this, he is able to bring his rear hand closer to his opponent, and it also puts it in centre alignment with their head.
There's been a straight left to the lip.
Usyk putting on the performance of a lifetime. And another left. A little touchdown. Oh, left hand.
Aside from just using his footwork for offensive means, he also uses it for defense as well. Again, just like we mentioned, he will step outside the lead foot of his opponent, but instead of throwing a punch, he will completely angle out his body to the other side.
Cutting that ring off better from Bellew, coming back at him. Accurate of a puncher he is.
Since most of Usyk's opponents are orthodox, constantly stepping out to the opponent's lead side completely takes away their rear hand, which maintains him at a safe zone. Again, thinking defense first and anticipating the danger.
Тому що Мчуно набагато...
В перерыве сказал слова.
Відчув присмак крові,
Криштофа Гловацкого.
Що я думаю,
известен для украинских болельщиков.
The trajectory of their rear hand just isn't in alignment with Usyk's head when he angles out, and oftentimes they'll just find themselves overreaching and just hitting air.
Moving up in weight and face.
Usyk is able to pull it off because he is so light on his feet. The downside is he is not as powerful with his shots, as he cannot plant his feet to really sit down on his shots and generate power. However, sacrificing that extra bit of power allows him to slide through the ring, always searching for the best position possible. Since Usyk doesn't really plant his feet when he punches, he is able to attack while moving. Whether it be attacking while moving backward, forward or from an angle, Usyk can really do it all. But now we have seen his best skills, let's take a look at his flaws. Flaws. Honestly, Usyk is so good technically that there's not really much flaws we can extract from him. Although one of the things that his opponents can utilise against him is countering his lead hand or jab. Since he throws it out there so often, it can create many opportunities for counters. Perhaps the biggest thing his opponents can exploit from him is that he is not one of the hardest punchers in the heavyweight division. Because of Usyk's smaller size for the division, he can find himself being pushed back by bigger men since his punches don't hurt them as much. He needs to put in much more effort to land damaging shots, while his opponents don't need to work as much. That being said, Usyk is really one of the most, if not the most skilled heavyweights in boxing.
Usyk's strengths are his ability to set traps that lead you into punches. And he's almost like Lomachenko in that way. He sets the rhythm of every fight he's in.
With all of his accomplishments in the amateurs and what he is now accomplishing in the pros, it is truly a spectacle to behold, and only time will tell if he will be able to become undisputed once more. But now, we would love to know your opinion on the comments. Do you see any other skills or flaws in Oleksandr Usyk? Let us know, and if you like this video, you can find more on our channel, and to your left, we have chosen a video we thought you may like.